Bright Tuty. Every student matters.
Welcome to another lecture, and in today's class we are going to cover the 9th chapter of your book, a very famous story by Charles Dickens, the name of which is A Christmas Carol. Now Charles Dickens, we all know, is a very renowned writer. Most of the books, most of the works which he has written cater to the to the age group of, or rather the cycle, or they aim to a student, to the children. They are the target audience of Charles Dickens. And in this chapter also, Charles Dickens is conveying a very important message. Now this story is about a man whose name is Ebenezer Scrooge. And as the title suggests, it is about Christmas. Now we all know what is a carol. A Christmas carol is basically a song which is sung on the day of Christmas in order to show your love, your respect for this very important and very prominent festival that we have. Now Christmas symbolizes charity. Christmas symbolizes happiness. Christmas symbolizes benevolence. Christmas symbolizes kindness. But all these things were missing in our main character, Ebenezer Scrooge. In the beginning of the chapter, when the chapter opens, we have been shown Ebenezer Scrooge as a person who was very cruel. He was very cold-hearted. He had no love, no feelings, no emotions for anyone. And then something happens with him, because of which he decides to change his old ways. He is visited by 3 ghosts on the Christmas Eve. And these 3 ghosts are the ghost of Christmas past, ghost of Christmas present, and the ghost of Christmas future. As the name suggests, 3 ghosts took him to visit his past, showed him about the present, and also made him sneak into his future. All the things that he saw in his, what was shown by the ghost, that actually made him realize that whatever he was doing is not going to do any good to either him or the people around him. And thus, he decided to change his ways. He decided to become a new man, a new person altogether. And he did everything that he did not do earlier. So this is a very interesting tale, a beautiful moral which has been conveyed by Charles Dickens to the story. So let us start reading. Once upon a time, of all the good days in the year, on Christmas Eve, old Scrooge sat busy in his counting house. The city clocks had only just struck 3, but it was quite dark already. The fog came pouring in at every chink and keyhole, and was so dense without that the houses opposite were mere phantoms. So, once upon a time, of all the good days in the year, so the writer says that we are talking about the day which is considered to be the best day of the year, and that is the Christmas Eve. Christmas Eve means the 24th of December, a day before the day before the Christmas. So on the Christmas Eve, old Scrooge sat busy in his counting house. Now what is a counting house? Counting house basically refers to an office space. An office where Scrooge was surrounded by a lot of accounting books and ledgers. So that is a counting house. So Scrooge was busy in his office. The city clocks had only just struck 3. But it was quite dark already. So he says, the writer tells us that it was only 3 in the afternoon, but because of the winters, It had become quite dark. The fog came pouring in at every chink and keyhole. Chink means whatever small, we have seen that when at times everything is made out of wood, there are small cracks that can be observed in the wood, right? So those are the chinks, and keyholes we all know, the places wherein we can put the key in. So the fog came pouring in. So it was entering the counting house. It was entering Scrooge's office through those small keyholes and the chinks in the wall. And it was so dense without. So dense without means without refers to outside the room. So other than the room, if one would see outside, there was a very, very heavy fog that could be seen. The fog was so dense that all the opposite houses and buildings were mere phantoms. Phantoms means something that obviously does not exist physically. You know something is there, but you cannot see it. Something which has a ghost-like appearance. So nothing could be seen because of the dense fog. "A Merry Christmas, Uncle! God save you!" cried a cheerful voice. It was the voice of Scrooge's nephew, who came upon him so quickly that this was the first intimation he had of any approach. So suddenly Scrooge heard a very cheerful, a very happy, a very lively voice saying, "A Merry Christmas, Uncle, God save you." Now this voice was of Scrooge's nephew, whose name we are going to read about in the further part of the story. And this nephew of Scrooge had entered the room so quickly that Scrooge did not realize him coming, and only when he wished him did he realize that yes, there was somebody else in the room as well. "Bah," said Scrooge, "humbug." Humbug is just a gesture of saying something which is very, what do we say? Something which is not at all relevant, something which is not at all useful, something which is very negative for you, which you do not approve of. So Scrooge said, "Bah, humbug. What is Christmas about?" So Scrooge was not in the least in the festive spirit. He did not enjoy Christmas at all, and he said, "Humbug. There's nothing good in Christmas." Scrooge's nephew said, "Christmas? A humbug, uncle?" So he exclaimed that, "Are you calling Christmas, which is the most important festival for us, as something which is so non-relevant? You don't mean that, I'm sure." So he said that, "I'm sure you're just saying it, but you don't mean it." Scrooge said that, "I do. I mean that Christmas is not at all relevant. Merry Christmas? What right have you to be merry? What reason have you to be merry? You are poor enough." So Scrooge said to his nephew that, "Why are you merry? Why are you so happy? You don't have any right to be happy. You don't have any reason to be happy also, because you are very poor." To this Scrooge's nephew replied, "Come then," returned the nephew gaily. "What right have you to be dismal? What right have you to be morose? You are rich enough." So he said, "Okay, fine. If I am poor and I should not be happy, then you tell me that why are you so dismal? Dismal? Why are you so sad? Why are you so morose?" Morose means so angry, ill-tempered, irritated. So why are you so morose? And he asked this very gaily, very happily he asked this. He said that you are very rich, so you should be very happy on the contrary. Scrooge, having no better answer ready, on the spur of the moment said, "Bah," again, and followed it up with humbug. So Scrooge did not have any answer to what his nephew had said. On the spur of the moment, he could not think of an answer so immediately. So what did he say rather? He just said "bah" and "humbug" again. And again his nephew pleaded. Pleaded means he requested. He said, "Uncle, I am sorry with all my heart to find you so resolute. We have never had any quarrel to which I have been a party, but I have made the trial in homage to Christmas, and I'll keep my Christmas humor to the last. So, a Merry Christmas, Uncle. So he continued to say, he said that I'm very sorry, uncle. With all my heart, I feel very sorry that you're so resolute. You are so determined that you don't want to take anybody's Christmas wishes. You don't want to think anything good about Christmas. So I feel very sorry for that. He says that we have never had any quarrel. There has never been a fight between us, to which I have been a party. I have been a party means that never have we, had any sort of a quarrel in which I have also been a part of it. But, he says, I have made the trial in homage to Christmas, homage, respect. He says that I only wished you Merry Christmas because I wanted to try. I always treat Christmas as the most respectable festival, and I wanted to keep its respect as high as I could, and I will keep my Christmas humor to the last. Christmas humor, my Christmas spirit, the happiness that I have, I am going to keep it to the last. So, a Merry Christmas, uncle. He once again wished him a Merry Christmas. Good afternoon, said Scrooge. So rather than replying to his Merry Christmas, what did he say? He said that good afternoon and a Happy New Year. So his nephew again wished him a Happy New Year, and Scrooge had the same reply. He said good afternoon. His nephew left the room without any angry word, notwithstanding. He stopped at the outer door to bestow the greetings of the season on the clerk, who, cold as he was warmer than Scrooge, for he returned them cordially. So, Scrooge's nephew, he left, he went out of the room without any angry word. He did not say anything wrong. He was not at all angry. Notwithstanding, instead of being angry, he just left the room very quietly. He stopped at the door where a clerk was sitting, and he exchanged his greetings with the clerk also. He wished him also a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. And the writer tells us that although the clerk was also very cold, he also was quite a cold-hearted person, somebody who was very heartless and feelingless and emotionless, but he was still better than Scrooge, and he returned them very respectfully. So if the nephew wished him a Merry Christmas, the clerk also wished him back. There's another fellow, muttered Scrooge, who overheard him. My clerk with 15 shillings a week and a wife and a family talking about a Merry Christmas. I'll retire to Bedlam. So Scrooge kept on muttering. After he saw this exchange of the greetings, he muttered to himself, speaking to himself, that he is another man. Just look at him. He's somebody, my clerk, who gets only 15 shillings a week. This is the salary that he was given. Shillings is the currency. So he said that he is my clerk who gets only 15 shillings a week as the salary. He has a wife, a family to look after, and still he feels that Christmas is merry for him. It is happy for him. He says, I'll retire to Bedlam. Bedlam means a place which is meant for mentally retarded people. Okay, people who are mentally unsound. That is the place for them. So Scrooge sarcastically said that I think I need to go to some mental asylum because I think I am the only one mad and rest everybody is good. This lunatic, in letting Scrooge's nephew out, had let 2 other people in. They were portly gentlemen, pleasant to behold. Lunatic means somebody who's mad, a madman. So this lunatic means this clerk of Scrooge, when he was letting Scrooge's nephew leave the office, two other gentlemen were allowed to enter, and they were portly gentlemen, portly, fat. They were fat gentlemen, pleasant to behold. Pleasant to behold, they were good looking. Behold means something to see, and pleasant, good looking, nice looking. So they were nice looking gentlemen who could be seen, they were good looking people. At this festive season of the year, Mr. Scrooge, said one gentleman, taking a pen, it is more than usually desirable that we should make some slight provision for the poor and destitute, who suffer greatly at the present time. Many thousands are in want of common necessaries, hundreds of thousands are in want of common comforts, sir. So, one of the gentlemen said that at this festive season of the year, since we are going through the festival season, it is very much desirable, it is the want of the hour, it is the need of the hour that we should make some slight provision, help, slight, little, that we should try and help the poor in whatever little way we can, the poor and the destitute. Destitute refers to those people who altogether have nothing at all with them, who are very, very impoverished. So he says that we should do something for these poor and destitute people who suffer greatly at the present time, who obviously due to the winter season are suffering a lot. Many thousands are in want of common necessaries. So he says that there are thousands of such people who do not have even the common and basic things that we need in life. And there are hundreds of thousands of people who want the comfort, the common comforts, maybe a blanket, a sweater, a muffler, something like this. Scrooge to this asked, are there no prisons? Now, why did he ask them? Because a prison is a place where if a person is sent, is obviously given food 3 times a day, has a roof over the head and is also given a blanket to, cover yourself with. So very, very cruelly, Scrooge asked that can we not send these people to prison? Why do we have to give money for them? Send them to prison. One of the gentlemen said that since no organization furnishes Christian cheer of mind or body to multitude, returned the gentleman, a few of us are endeavoring to raise a fund to buy the poor some meat and drink and means of warmth. What shall I put you down for? So, one of the gentlemen, again the same gentleman said that since there is no Christian organization under which, multitude means so many people, such a large population of people can be helped. There is no such organization. Therefore, there are a few of us who are endeavoring, who are making an effort, who are trying to raise some funds, to raise some money, to raise some donation for these poor people so that they can get some meat, some drinks and something warm to cover themselves with. So, what shall I put you down for? What shall I put you down for means that how much would you be willing to pay? How much would you be willing to donate for this cause? Scrooge replied, nothing. You wish to be anonymous. Anonymous means to not have a name. There are so many people who are so kind-hearted that they donate a very big amount to help somebody who is needy, but they don't want to be named. They don't want to get unnecessary publicity out of it, popularity out of it. So they do it anonymously. That is, they do it very secretly without revealing their name. So the gentleman thought that maybe even Scrooge wanted to do that. So Scrooge said that I wish to be left alone. Since you ask me what I wish, gentlemen, that is my answer. I don't make merry myself at Christmas and I can't afford to make idle people merry. So he says that I wish to be left alone. You asked me what I want and I'm telling you what I want. He says that I am not one of those people who celebrate Christmas. And since I don't celebrate Christmas, I cannot make some idle people. Idle people, people who are totally free, who have nothing to do. So he says that I cannot afford to make these idle people, get happy because of the money that I give. Seeing clearly that it would be useless to pursue their point, the gentleman withdrew. So the gentleman very clearly understood that there would be no point to pursue, there would be no point to convince this man further. So they withdrew. Withdrew means they decided to just, take back their opinions. They just decided not to say anything at all. They decided to rest their case. At length, the hour of shutting up the counting house arrived. Scrooge turned to his clerk as they locked up and said, "You'll want all day tomorrow, I suppose." So at length, the hour of shutting up. So at length, some time passed and finally the time came when the office was supposed to be closed. Scrooge looked at his clerk who was locking the door and he said that you'll want all day tomorrow, I suppose. So he asked that I'm sure you would want an off tomorrow. Tomorrow is 25th of December, so I'm sure you would not be coming to the office tomorrow. And his clerk said, if it is convenient, sir, if you are okay with it, if you are comfortable with it, then I will want a leave. It is not convenient, said Scrooge, and it's not fair. So Scrooge said that no, it is not at all comfortable and it is not right also. The clerk observed that it was only once a year. So the clerk further to this, he thought that he was only asking for a leave once a year, that is 25th, and this was not something very big a deal for him. A poor excuse for picking a man's pocket every 25th of December, said Scrooge, buttoning his greatcoat to the chin. But I suppose you must have the whole day. Be here all the earlier next morning. So Scrooge said that, celebrating 25th of December, celebrating Christmas is a very, very bad excuse of letting a person spend a lot of money unnecessarily. This is what he believed. So while he was saying this, he was buttoning the coat, his great coat to the chin. So the coat he just buttoned up till the chin. And he said that I suppose, okay, fine, you can take a leave tomorrow. But the day after tomorrow, that is the 26th, you have to come even earlier to the office. Now when Scrooge awoke, it was so dark that looking out of bed, he could scarcely distinguish the transparent window from the opaque walls of his chamber. He was endeavouring to pierce the darkness with his ferret eyes when the chimes of a neighbouring church struck the hour. So Scrooge went home, he fell off to sleep, and when he woke up, it was in the middle of the night when he woke up, and when he woke up, it was so dark that looking out of bed, when he was looking, he was on his bed and he was looking into his room also, he could scarcely distinguish the transparent window from the opaque walls of his chamber. Now, we all know the difference between opaque, transparent and translucent, right? Opaque is something which has very less, the slightest visibility. Some very light things can be seen through. Something which is transparent is something through which you can see easily. But opaque is something through which seeing on the other side is not that possible. So the walls of his chamber, of his room, they were opaque. There was a very slight visibility to the other end of the room. And it was very difficult for him to see the window on the other side of the room. He was endeavouring, he was trying to pierce the darkness. Pierce the darkness means he was trying to cut through the darkness with his ferret eyes with his cat-like sharp eyes, when the chimes of a neighbouring church struck the hour. So he could hear the chimes of the neighboring church. There was a church in his neighborhood and they struck the hour. Means it was 12 o'clock at night. It was finally Christmas. Light flashed up in the room upon the instant, and the curtains of his bed were drawn aside, and Scrooge found himself face to face with a strange figure like a child, yet like an old man. Scrooge looked up at the figure in front of him and said, "Who and what are you?" So, the moment it struck 12, there was sudden light in the room. Upon the instant, so very instantly, very quickly, there was light in the room. The curtains of his bed, so his bedside curtains, they drew aside on their own, and opposite Scrooge was standing a man who was very strange looking. He was like a child, and yet, like an old man, Scrooge looked up at the figure in front of him and said, "Who and what are you?" So just like anybody else, Scrooge looked at that little figure and asked him that, "Who are you? What are you?" And that figure replied, "I am the ghost of Christmas past." "Long past?" inquired Scrooge, observant of its dwarfish stature. "No, your past. Rise and walk with me." So long past means that something related to the history. Scrooge thought that probably this person has got something to related to the history of the country. He was observing that dwarfish stature. Dwarf means somebody who has a very short height. Stature means the body posture, the body build. So he was looking and very clearly observing that small person standing in front of him. And he asked that, "Are you talking about long past? Are you talking about history?" So that person, that figure said, "No, I am talking about your past. Now rise, get up and walk with me." As the words were spoken, they passed through the wall and stood upon an open country road with fields on either hand. "Good heavens," said Scrooge, clasping his hands together as he looked about them. "I was bred in this place. I was a boy here. Why, there's my old school." So when they were talking about it, both the ghost of Christmas past and Scrooge, they passed through the wall and they were standing on a road, the country road, which was very open. It was a very, broad road and had fields on either side. Either side means on both the hand one could only see open fields. The moment Scrooge saw that, he said, "Good heaven, my God," clasping his hands together. Clasping means holding his hands together. He said that, "I was bred in this place." Bred is the past form of breed. So what he meant to say was that I was raised up in this place. I was brought up in this place. I was a boy here. And then he says that there is my school. "The school is not quite deserted," said the ghost. "A solitary child neglected by his friends is still left there." So the ghost took Scrooge inside the school and said that despite being a Christmas, the school is not deserted. Deserted means it is not completely empty. There is a solitary child, a lonely child who is sitting in the school, who is neglected by his friends, who is not paid attention to by his friends, and he is still there. Scrooge looked and recognized his own younger self. When Scrooge saw that boy, that lonely boy who was sitting, he recognized that that boy was none other than the young Scrooge himself. So he had taken him into the past when Scrooge was a schoolboy, and on one of the Christmas, rather than being with anyone, rather than being with a family, he was alone. I wish, Scrooge muttered, putting his hand in his pocket and looking about him after drying his eyes with his cuff. But it's too late now. The moment Scrooge saw that boy, he said, I wish, he muttered to himself. This word muttered we had read above also, which means speaking to yourself. He put his hands in his pocket, he was looking at that child and he dried his eyes with his cuff. What is a cuff? When we wear a shirt, we have a cuff, at the front of the sleeves that is buttoned up. That is a cuff that we have. So he dried his eyes with the cuff, means he wiped off his tears with the help of his cuff. He said that I wish, but it's too late now. The ghost asked, what is the matter? What happened to you? What are you talking about? Scrooge said, nothing. There was a boy singing a Christmas carol at my door last night. I should like to have given him something, that's all. So he just felt bad, when he saw himself as a young boy being alone, having nobody to celebrate the Christmas with. He remembered about a boy who had come to his door, who had come to ask for some sort of donation, who was singing a Christmas carol and he expected to get something in return. But Scrooge, as always, as we know, did not give him even a penny. So he was feeling bad, he was feeling regretful that he should have given something to that boy at least. The ghost smiled thoughtfully and waved his hand, saying as it did so, let us see another Christmas. So, when Scrooge said this, the ghost smiled thoughtfully. So there was something going on in the mind of the ghost. He started smiling, he started waving his hand, and he said that let's go, there is another Christmas that we have to see. Scrooge's former self grew larger at the words and the room became a little darker and more dirty. As he did that, the boy who was sitting in front of them, which was the young Scrooge, he became, he grew up, he became a little more elder. And the room in which that boy was sitting, it became a little darker and it became more dirty. Scrooge looked at the ghost and glanced anxiously towards the door. So Scrooge looked at the ghost and very anxiously, he was very worried, he was very tensed. So with a lot of nervousness, he looked. Glanced means looked. So he looked at the door. It opened and a little girl, much younger than the boy, came darting in and putting her arms about his neck and often kissing him, addressed him as her dear, dear brother. So that door opened and a little girl entered. That little girl who entered the room was younger than the boy. So she was younger than Scrooge. And she came darting in. Darting in means very quickly she entered the room. She put her arms around his neck. So she hugged that boy, kissed that boy and said, dear, dear brother, I have come to bring you home, dear brother, said the child, clapping her tiny hands and bending down to laugh. Father is so much kinder than he used to be, that home's like heaven. He spoke so gently to me one dear night when I was going to bed that I was not afraid to ask him once more if you might come home, and he said, yes, you should, and sent me in a coach to bring you. So what did the girl say? The girl said that, dear brother, I have come to take you home. As she was saying this, she was so happy and excited that she was clapping her little hands. She said that father is very kind now. He's become a very kind-hearted person. And she said that our home is finally like a heaven. It is a beautiful place to live in. He just spoke very gently. He spoke to me in a very loving manner one night. And when I was going to bed, she says that I asked him if I can bring you home. And he said yes to it. He gave me the permission to bring you home. And he also sent me in a coach. Coach means a vehicle. So he gave me a vehicle and he sent me here to bring you back home. Always a delicate creature, said the ghost, but she had a large heart. So the ghost told Scrooge that this girl, your sister, she was always a very delicate creature, a very soft-hearted person, and she had a very, very big heart. Scrooge started crying. He said, yes, she did. She died a woman, said the ghost. She had, as I think, children. So the ghost reminded him, he was talking to Scrooge, that if I am not wrong, your sister died as a woman. She was quite young when she died and she also had children. Scrooge said that yes, she has one child. True, said the ghost, your nephew. Scrooge seemed uneasy in his mind and answered briefly, yes. So what was the intention of the ghost to say this to him, to remind him, all this was that his sister was very kind to him. His sister loved him. And although she was no longer alive, she had a son. The son, Scrooge's nephew, who had come in the morning to meet Scrooge and to wish him a Merry Christmas, and with whom Scrooge did not behave very kindly. So Scrooge realized his mistake, he realized where he was wrong, and so his volume was very low. Although they had but that moment left the school behind them, they were now in the busy thoroughfares of a city, where shadowy passengers passed and repassed. It was made plain enough by the dressing of the shops that here too it was Christmas time again, but it was evening and the streets were lighted up. So that moment they left the school behind them, and where were they standing now? In the thoroughfares of a city. Thoroughfares means in the marketplace of a city, where shadowy passengers. Now why the word shadowy has been used? Because of the fog, the people could not be seen very clearly. Only the shadow of the people could be felt. So the people were passing and repassing because it was a market plus it was Christmas. It was made plain enough by the dressing of the shops. So the market did not seem to be a very, a big market. It did not seem to be a very modern market. There were a lot of shops in that market, but because of the Christmas time, they were all lit up. So there was light all across the street. Again, Scrooge saw himself. He was older now, a man in the prime of life. His face had begun to wear the signs of care and avarice. There was an eager, greedy, restless motion in the eyes. So, one more time Scrooge saw himself in that market. He was older now and was in the prime of his life. Prime of his life means he was a youth now. He was a young man now. His face was showing signs of care. They were showing signs of being worried. And avarice. Avarice means greed. He seemed to be greedy now. He looked as somebody who was very eager, who was very, excited to do something, was very greedy and was very restless. He was not at all calm and peaceful. There was a lot going on in his mind. He was not alone, but sat by the side of a fair young girl in a mourning dress, in whose eyes there were tears, which sparkled in the light that shone out of the ghost of Christmas past. So Scrooge was not sitting alone. He was sitting with a young girl who was in a mourning dress. Mourning dress, again, to mourn for somebody means when somebody dies and you are expressing your grief over their death. So mourning death, as we have seen in the American culture, they wear black when somebody dies, and in the Indian culture they wear white. So there was a girl who was wearing a mourning dress and she was crying as well, and the tears of the girl's eyes were actually sparkling. They were shining out of the ghost, the Christmas ghost. It matters little, Belly said softly. To you, very little. Another idol has displaced me. And if it can cheer and comfort you in time to come, as I would have tried to do, I have not just cause to grieve. So that girl who was sitting by Scrooge's side was Belly. She was in love with Scrooge. But what did she say to Scrooge? She said that it matters little to you now. You don't care about me any longer. Another idol has displaced me. So idol means there is something else in your life which is more important than me. And what is she talking about? She was talking about Scrooge's career. So Scrooge was, about to break his relationship with that girl because he wanted to pursue his career. So she said that you want to go ahead with your career, and if it is something that can make you happy, something that makes you feel comfortable, then I am totally okay with it. I have no just cause to grieve. Then I really don't have any reason. Just cause means I don't have any reason to feel bad. If you are happy with the choice that you are making in your life, then I'm very happy with it. Scrooge asked him, what idol has displaced you? What are you talking about? The girl said, a golden one. So a golden idol means, like I told you, a career, money. So she said that I am going to grant your wish. I am going to give you what you want, free you from marrying me. I am not going to force you to marry me now. That is the way you wish it, Ebenezer. I feel sorry for you. She left him and they parted. So she said that is okay. If this is what you want, I am going to give you this. I am not going to force you to marry me, but I do feel very bad for you. So she left him and they parted. They got separated from each other. Spirit, said Scrooge, show me no more. Conduct me home. Why do you delight to torture me? So, Scrooge had seen three things. He saw himself as a small boy sitting alone in his school with nobody to celebrate the Christmas with. He saw himself a little older when his sister had come to school to take him back home. The same sister who loved him a lot. But after she died, Scrooge did not take care of her son, his nephew. And the third one that Scrooge saw was himself in his young age, in his youth, when he had to marry a girl by the name Belle. But he was, more into his career and making money, and so he left her. So he was so disappointed with himself. He was so hurt that he decided, he requested the ghost to take him back home. He said that why do you delight to torture me? That why, are you getting some happiness? Are you getting some pleasure in giving me pain? Awaking and sitting up in bed to get his thoughts together, Scrooge had no occasion to be told that the bell was again upon the stroke of 1. He felt that he was restored to consciousness in the right nick of time for the special purpose of holding a conference with the second messenger. So as soon as he said that, he woke up and he found himself on his bed. He was trying to collect his thoughts together. He was trying to think and get over what he had seen when the clock struck 1. He felt that he was restored to consciousness, that he gained back his memory. He got okay just in the nick of time, just at the right time, because there was a special messenger there was a special person who was waiting for Scrooge to conduct a conference, to conduct a meeting. And who was this special messenger? The ghost of Christmas present. So my dear students, what have we read so far? We read about Scrooge. He has been portrayed as somebody who's a very cold-hearted man, who did not make any merry on Christmas. He did not wish anybody a Merry Christmas, and he found Christmas to be a humbug. And in order to teach him a lesson, he was first visited by the ghost of Christmas past. He took him to his school when he was shown himself as a young boy sitting alone. Then, a little older, when he was reminded of the loving sister that he had, and he was made to realize his mistake, that the way his sister loved him, he does not love his nephew back. And third, he was shown Belle, the girl who loved him, wanted to marry him, but Scrooge left that girl for the sake of his career, for the sake of money. After this, Scrooge woke up. It was 1, and there was another messenger waiting for him, and it was the ghost of Christmas present.